Okay.
Dun 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 dun.
In the game, that last scene breathes a lot more. And Ellie says what she says. The show goes, none of that is on you. And he's standing there and he goes, I struggled a long time with surviving. And then he grabs his wrist and he starts rubbing that watch. That's the broken watch that Sarah gave him. It's this wonderfully symbolic moment. You keep finding something to fight for. I don't know. The moment just breathes more. I like this episode. I like everything they did with it. It just 43 minutes and it just a little rushed. I'm gonna take some time to think about it and I'm sure I'll be nicer in the review.
I am gonna be nicer in this review. I'm happy I wait to do reviews on shows like this when I'm so invested, because otherwise I would just go off in a way I'd probably regret. I'm a very impulsive person. I often say things I regret. So it was a terrible idea to start a YouTube channel, especially when it's a reaction channel. But whatever. I mean, that's living on the edge, right? Usually people review things by starting with the good and then ending with the bad. However, I'm going to do the opposite because clearly I'm very nitpicky when it comes to this show. And I just need to get all that out of the way so that I can focus on the positives. I do love what this show has accomplished, especially in what I consider to be a short amount of time. But I do need to get my gripes out of the way so that I can focus on the praise. Or at least that's the plan. My ranting could very much go off the rails. The only two scenes from this episode that I would like to compare to the game really is the final scene and then Joel's saving of Ellie. Him gunning down all the fireflies and then taking her out of the operating room and going to the elevator. In regards to that final scene, the big difference is that we get that confirmation that Ellie killed Riley. And I think the callback to Left Behind, that episode title, and then that's also the name of the DLC, is important because that episode was so concerned with Ellie's purpose, the purpose she didn't have, the purpose she was given when she was infected, albeit at a great cost. Because in this episode, she's robbed of that purpose and is reverted back to a similar state she was in directly after the death of Riley, which is why she starts talking about that. And I think it's important that this moment, even though I think it does more so in the game, focuses on her survivor's guilt. There's this line in the game in that scene where she says, I'm still waiting for my turn. Her turn being, well, to turn into an infected, but her turn to die. It's her way of telling Joel that she was ready to die. And Joel knows that. Which is why his response is, I struggled a long time with surviving. I like the execution in the game a little bit better because I think there's more pauses. Like I said, it breathes more. In the show, Joel panics a little bit more, which I think is in line with this characterization of Joel, Pedro's characterization of Joel, because he feels like he's going to get caught in this lie. He's still confident when he looks in her eyes and lies, says, I swear. But in the game, I think he was more confident and more composed. Joel's fuck up here is the lying to Ellie. I think he was completely justified in getting her out of the Firefly Hospital because they violated her agency. That's my take. I know there's a lot of different takes on this, and that's the beauty of it. But his fuck up is the lie because he knows it's what she would have wanted. And he'll lose her if he tells her the truth, so he doesn't. Even though lying means losing her anyway. I guess you could also argue that he's lying to protect her because that's what a parent does. You could also make the argument that Ellie's in no position to make that decision as a child, whether the decision to die for humanity. And the adults in this situation just completely drop the ball. Not that there's a good way to handle it. Anyway, obviously, Ellie knows Joel's lying. And her okay is in some acceptance of what he's telling her. It's like, okay, our relationship's going to be different now. Regarding the hospital sequence, there's going to be gamers that look at it like it's very similar. I see some major differences, some glaring differences that I think really work for the show, but I still prefer the version in the game. In the show, it very much explores, or further explores, Joel's trauma. He dissociates when he's going and killing everyone. It's like he's not even in his own body. And Pedro does a great job with the expression on his face. It's a callback to episode 1, when, at the end of episode 1, when Joel beat that soldier to death after having that flashback to Sarah's death. The same thing happens here. And it really works. And that's me saying that looking at it objectively and through the lens of a first-time viewer. As a gamer, it makes Joel even more ruthless, I think. as he's killing everyone in this unhinged haze. In the game, I think it's more emotional. I think it's sadder. And Joel's very much in his body because it's cold here and it's horrific. And I think that was important to do in the show because it vilifies him in a way that's going to better set up future seasons. There's a lot of things that happen in part 2 of the game that didn't land very well, and it's probably because people were so on board with what Joel did as gamers. The thing I thought about most when he took Ellie out of that operating room, well, first, it's not to say the game doesn't vilify Joel. You don't want to kill the doctor. It makes you do it. The scene with Marlene and when he offs Marlene's pretty much exactly the same. There's the moment of hesitation where Marlene says, and you know it, that this isn't the right thing. That's all still there. But when he goes into the operating room to get Ellie after killing the doctor, he takes her mask off, whatever the fucking thing is. And then the sad music starts playing. The same sad music that's playing when he's killing all the soldiers in the show. And he goes, it's okay, baby girl. He grabs her. The alarms start going off because not everyone's dead and they're trying to get him. And then he starts running through the halls as the sad music's playing and the red lights are flashing. The alarms are sounding and they're chasing him. And it directly parallels when Joel was running from infected with Sarah in his arms. It's definitely more heroic in the game. And you can totally argue that that's because you're playing from Joel's perspective, so that's how he views everything. But if that's the case, then he's not dissociating from what's going on. He feels like he's being heroic. In here, he's just getting the job done, and he's dissociating because he doesn't want to feel what he's actually doing. I think in the game, he's very much feeling what he's doing. And I like that a little bit more. Because in his mind, like I said, he's running from people instead of infected. In his mind, people might as well be infected. So fuck them. The world took away what mattered most to him, so he's going to take away the cure. You know, maybe if Sarah had been killed by the virus and not man, he would have thought twice about taking Ellie out of that hospital. Regardless, none of it's that simple, and I think Pedro's acting added a ton of layers to what's happening in the show. This version of Joel is definitely geared towards deconstructing that macho archetype that video game Joel more aligns with. Still, Joel is not a hero in the show, definitely. And he's still not a hero in the game, even though he's the protagonist. It's not a 180, and I am nitpicking the differences. They're not even really changes. The things I mentioned were just more things that happened, which brings me to my main gripe with this series, this episode and series, is it just feels rushed. This season could have benefited greatly from 2 more episodes, 3 more episodes. Everything that happened in this episode should have been 2 episodes, in my opinion. But I'm going to stop bitching and just get into this episode. Beginning with the cold open. I love Ashley Johnson, and she killed it as Ellie's mom. I love how this series has paid homage to all of the voice actors, from Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson to Laura Bailey, who portrays Abby in part 2, was a nurse in the operating room of this episode, which is kind of funny because I'm pretty sure she voiced a nurse in the operating room in the game. So it's kind of perfect. She plays the same character in a way, or one of the same characters. But out of all the OG actors, Merle Dandridge is obviously the standout because she got to play the same character, and she perfected that character, which is to be expected considering she lived with that character for over a decade. Everything with Marlene is better here. Not just the performance, but yeah, with the scene with her and Anna. It's so ironic to me that Anna's like, find someone to take care of her. And Marlene found someone so good to take care of Ellie that it bit her in the ass. Or someone to look after her. Whatever the line was. Also, the opening scenes make the significance of Ellie's knife all the more profound because it's like this object that outside of Marlene, only the audience knows the true history of. It's been there for everything. It's like fucking R2-D2. And it's like this constant in this series. And Marlene, that's why Marlene gives it to Joel. Although Ellie's knife is like a thing in the game, not like this. And I really like that symbolism. It's like the only constant is violence. And then Joel and Ellie in Salt Lake City, after we get to present day, I think there was a perfect amount of calm. And I don't mean that in a pacing sense. The perfect amount of calm before the storm with those two in this episode. I'm really happy they included the giraffe scene because it's this moment of bliss for the two characters. And Pedro played that so well because he's just looking at Ellie the whole time. That look on his face, that smile, that tenderness, that was kind of amazing. I didn't acknowledge as much of it. When I'm watching this, I'm clearly just thinking of the game too much. The second time around is so much more beneficial for me. Maybe I should have just done reactions where I was watching it the second time, but I love that look up on Pedro's face in that scene because it accurately portrays, or it accurately conveys that his relationship with Ellie is the only good thing he sees in this world right now. And it makes what comes next even harder because it's like Joel took his kid to the zoo. And then they told him, well, we're going to kill your kid now. And then there was the it can't be for nothing talk, which was perfect here. I can't stress how great Pedro and Bella are in this series. I don't have any problems with them in their performances. I have complained about the characterizations of Joel in particular. Not necessarily complained, just took note of the differences. I don't have a problem with that at all. I do like video game Joel better, but I have that bias. Anyway, my favorite scene in this episode is Joel's confession scene. There's a throwaway line in the game where Joel and Ellie come across I think it's a pair of bodies in a bathtub, and they took their own life. Or they couldn't. Joel says something like, well, it's just not easy. Paraphrasing, I don't remember the exact lines. Shocking that I don't remember the lines. It wasn't a cutscene, it was just doing gameplay. So you have this notion that Joel tried to kill himself at one point, but here we get that fleshed out. There isn't even, he doesn't have this scar in the game. So they were thinking about this from the jump. But that confession scene, it's the only moment we've ever seen throughout the franchise where Joel really tells Ellie what she means to him. And again, those two were amazing in it, saying how they feel without really saying how they feel. And then there's the smoke bombs or whatever that the Fireflies throw at Joel and Ellie to subdue them, which was whatever, it worked. I'm not surprised we didn't get the bus sequence because budget, time, and stuff like that. I still think sequences like that, and there were more than a few sequences like that the show didn't include, make the story stronger because they flesh out, and in this case, cap off a journey where Joel and Ellie are saving each other over and over and over again. In that sequence, she saves him, and then he swims after her, and as he's performing CPR on her, the soldier knocks him out. Then he wakes up, sees Marlene, and you're still in that mode, like, gotta save Ellie, because you don't know if she's okay. So naturally, you're ready to go off on these people for a multitude of reasons, as Joel and witnessing Joel. Yeah, I just find things like that more engrossing. Anyway, because of the context we get with Ellie's mom and Marlene, there are some changes made to how the infection works in regards to Ellie. In the game, Marlene says that the growth inside Ellie has somehow mutated, which implies that the miracle inside of her happened after she was. I know this doesn't really matter, but the fact that cordyceps have been inside her since birth, and that's the reason for her immunity, I think means kind of that, or at least to me, the first thing I think about is, well, can't you just recreate immunity under similar circumstances then? Safer circumstances? Without anyone dying? But couldn't you basically like just inject a micro dose of cordyceps into newborns? It wouldn't result in immunity for people who are already alive, but future generations would be okay. And I think that's good enough, right? Because it means humanity has a future outside of this. And just worrying about the people who are already alive and their lifespan, which in the grand scheme of things is you know, a drop of water in a bucket full, is just selfish. Also, I always think about how if, let's say, they manufacture a cure, who gets it? Because there's no way it's going to be distributed equally between the Fireflies and Fedra, not to mention all the other factions throughout the world. What's the distribution system? There's no way it wouldn't be leveraged politically. Still, these sort of secondary arguments that I'm making don't really matter, though, and I understand that because the story of The Last of Us is meant to present this moral conundrum, right? The trolley problem. Trolley problem being, do you let the trolley, hit someone you love, or save everybody on the trolley. You know what I mean? If you're from, if I'm not doing that justice, but look it up if you're not familiar with it. The point being, do you save someone you love, or do you save everyone? It's the trolley problem on a huge scale. Still, it's never that simple. This story wants to simplify it like that, but it's just not really. And you can make those secondary arguments. It's what makes it interesting to talk about and never ending. It's an infinite argument. And I'm not trying to argue with anybody on the internet right now. I see all of the sides. I just like the sides that I'm clearly choosing to focus on. Because I don't think humanity should want to save itself by slaughtering a little girl. I think that act in and of itself is devoid of humanity. Joel's response to that decision is devoid of humanity as well. But again, that's what makes it interesting. It's like going to war and committing all these atrocities, or just murder in general, to combat what you believe to be a greater evil. It's important to note that Joel didn't make his decision with the idea that a cure might not be possible, because this show makes it clear that he thinks Marlene can do it. What was that, episode 6? It reaffirms that he's choosing Ellie over all of humanity, essentially. Also, the look on Pedro's face when he's considering what Marlene is saying in the parking garage was incredible. Had I not known what was going to happen, I would have thought he was going to leave her even more than in the game. The garage scene, what they nailed. I think the scene in the car where Joel's telling Ellie, or lying to Ellie about what happened, is enhanced by various lines that negate sort of plot holes in the game. Because in the game, Joel doesn't say anything about raiders or Marlene, or she asks about Marlene in this. Joel basically gave her confirmation that everyone's dead. More of an assumption in the game, I guess. It's not that big of a deal, I mean, in the game, but I like that they added those lines. And they do that a lot in this show. That hike when they get to Wyoming, it's a lot more unsettling than in the game. And maybe part of the reason I feel that way is because Joel and Ellie's relationship, I think, has developed so much more in the game. And that's to say that in this, it feels like Joel is like, okay, you're my daughter now. You're not the new Sarah. He does make that distinction that you're different kids, but it feels like he's using her more to fill that hole in his life. Whereas in the game, she is his daughter. And yes, I know a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, well, that's the same thing here. I just think it's more so in the game. It just feels creepy at the end. Like, I don't want to talk about anything I just did. You're my daughter now. So listen to me talk about the last one. It's not to say it doesn't work. It totally works in the show. And again, I think it sets Joel up for this story to improve in season 2 and 3. I think it will be better moving forward than the part 2. I think structurally and a lot of things just felt inconsistent with the first game. I think this will be stronger in the long run as a series in its entirety. I really do. Ultimately, I'm just happy other people who wouldn't have found it otherwise got to experience this story. A story which I think presents some of the most interesting questions and debates a story can. What it means to be human. How far would you go to protect someone you love? I mean, this series is all about love. And Mason has talked a lot in interviews about how he wants to depict, explore the dark side of love. I think there's a lot more darkness in the final notes of this episode. And because of the complicated and simultaneously nuanced connection between humanity and love, there are no heroes in this world. Which is true to life. There's shades of darkness and beams of light in all of us, which is why I think the world of The Last of Us is so resonant. Again, Joel isn't a hero, and neither is Marlene. I don't have any children, but I think I would go scorched earth as well. And I've heard a lot of parents say that about this story in the years since the game came out. And that sort of thing will undoubtedly be the brilliance of this series. So yeah, I think this show has done a great job at appealing to newcomers without alienating hardcore fans. However, I think it started a lot stronger than it finished because it breathed more in the beginning. I mean, we had longer episodes in the beginning. Episodes got shorter and it started to feel like we were rushing towards the finish line. Had there been more episodes, more time, things would have just landed better with me. People who haven't played the game always argue you don't need gameplay, you don't need action sequences. The thing that was so brilliant about the game is that all of those things played a role. The story wasn't just told or isn't just told through cutscenes. You need to see all of their struggles, and not all of them. I'm not saying everything had to be in the story. I'm not saying even the same things had to be in the story, just more. More struggle, more moments with Joel and Ellie, more action, more infected, because it adds weight to the drama. It's like you hear soldiers talk about war and the bonds they form in combat, how they continuously rely on one another. That's what happens to Joel and Ellie. Yes, there's a little bit of that in this series, and you do get a good chunk of that in episode 8, but I think it would have just benefited from more of that throughout, without Infected being this constant threat. Yes, you could argue that we know it's there, but to see it and to deal with it on a regular basis makes the world feel like more of a problem. When you get to the Firefly Hospital in the game and Marlene goes, "How did you do it?" You're like, yeah, I don't know. It was all her. She helped a lot. In this, for me, it was like, well, we had some problems, but we just traveled. The game's just more arduous and longer. I think it's comparable to Frodo and Sam's journey to Mordor. The show just doesn't feel as grand to me. And that's unfair. It doesn't necessarily need to feel more epic and grand, but more time would have been very much appreciated. Yeah, I don't think the relationship is as strong here because I am comparing it to that, but it does work. It does work. I have to stress the fact that I do think it works. And when I say more episodes, I have to mention the Bill and Frank episode, and I have to mention the Riley episode. Those were great episodes, and I think they thematically add a lot to this story. And I understand why Druckmann and Mazin wanted to include those things. Those things benefit the story as well. I just think if you're going to include things that weren't a part of the original story, because the DLC came after and Bill and Frank, you just don't get a chunk like that devoted to them. You just need more episodes. If you're going to do more that isn't focusing necessarily on the main story, you need more episodes. So I guess walking away from this, season 1, the game is the definitive way to experience this story, in my opinion. The show is a companion piece for me. For new viewers, it'll be the other way around, no doubt. Well, that's why they remastered the game again. And I think that's great. I want people to experience it in its original medium. Because as an interactive story, there's just so much about it that you can't beat. I know I've been very hypocritical and inconsistent and all over the place in the way I've approached this series, given one of the best episodes, some of the best episodes, bad reviews in ways. I don't even do ratings, so I don't know why I'm doing this. The game's a 10 for me. This, I gotta give it a 7.5 to an 8. Don't get me wrong. Video game adaptations have been done very well in animation, but nothing of this scale, production value, and quality has ever been accomplished in live action regarding video game adaptations. I don't think there was anyone better for the job of showrunner than Craig Mazin. They brought in Druckmann. The cinematography, the direction, the writing, the score, obviously. Everything about this series was top notch. My only gripe at the end of the day is it needed more time to breathe and more Infected, more action. Those last two things aren't even as important to me as more time to breathe. It isn't really even a gripe. It's just something that would have benefited the series. More time is something I feel like I needed. Regardless, this was such an experience for me because I was, I think, so conflicted at times about wanting to show what I was really thinking and feeling because I knew what was happening in front of me was good. But to sit there and praise it, if I didn't feel that way, would have betrayed what I feel needs to happen on this platform as a reactor, which is authenticity. And I want to thank everyone who went on this journey with me, like a lot, because you don't have to watch any of this. If you're still here right now, you're the shit. Thank you so much. I don't expect people to care about things I say at all. I don't expect anyone to be this far into the video. My retention's shit on videos. I'm definitely going to rewatch this series now and just enjoy it for what it is. I expect a lot of people to feel differently than me, and that's fine. I love that. I respect it. Yeah, that's all that I have. Big love. The biggest of love, the most profound, the most selfish, the most toxic of love. To everyone who was bored enough to join me, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Drive me off this platform if you must. Otherwise, like, subscribe, drink water, stay young, and remember, don't be an idiot, be a buffoon. Peace.